Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NFL DFS video for week number 12. So in this video, I'll be going over kind of my player pools for both DraftKings and FanDuel, doing a quick little rundown on everybody that's in the player pool, just a little bit of a rundown on each one, trying to make it quick, short, and to the point. If you guys are interested in my cheat sheets, they will be up later today on the sports affiliation website as well, and I will be posting those up in the community tab. I can throw them down in the comments as well on this video, so definitely be sure to look out for that. It kind of breaks down my player pool just a little bit simpler too, in terms of guys that are higher priced, mid priced, and then kind of lower priced ones overall. So definitely be sure to check that out once that's up. And then without further ado, we'll get started with the DraftKings side. So at the quarterback position, there's the three big guys at the top. You got Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. You can play any one of these three. They're all $100 apart. All of them look really good this week and look like solid stacking options. Then below them, we have CJ Stroud, $7,700 going against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's defense has been decent this year. They're going to be without Tyson Campbell at corner once again, though. And CJ Stroud did pretty well versus them earlier this year, so I don't really have any worries to be had there. Kyler Murray at $6,900 does give you a little bit of rushing upsides going against the Rams. Defense should be a pretty favorable matchup there as well. The one thing I would kind of note is, Michael Wilson's out. Hollywood Brown's really banged up, so he may not have a ton of options to throw to, but you can still stack him with some cheap guys like Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch, a wide receiver, or Trey McBride at tight end. And then we get down to Baker Mayfield, $5,500. Like the matchup against the Colts, Baker Mayfield's been solid so far this season. On the opposite in that game, we get Gardner Minshew at $5,100. And quarterbacks have been doing pretty well versus that Tampa defense as of late. They are without Jamel Dean, their best corner this week. Carlton Davis listed as questionable. Levante David is out. And then I believe Devin White's also listed as questionable. So could be a favorable matchup for the Colts overall this week. Then we move over to the running back position. We got Alvin Kamara, $8,400 going against Atlanta. Not the greatest matchup on paper, but if he gets a lot of receptions, could really pay off at this price tag once again. Saquon Barkley against the Patriots. Saquon had that really good game last week, so I think there's going to be some ownership coming into him. Definitely worth a shot at the very least. I like DeAndre Swift quite a bit at $6,800 going against Buffalo this week. Running backs have done better versus them as of late. And then below him, we got Kyren Williams, $6,600. He is making his return from the IR most likely this week. He's practicing full all week. Still have to wait for him to officially be activated. By the time you're watching this video, that might have already happened, so just keep that in mind. But looks like a really good matchup on paper. He was killing it to start the year. Might be a little bit limited this week, but still like the upside that he does present overall. Then we move down to Joe Mixon, $6,300. It's a tougher matchup against Pittsburgh, but they're going to need to lean on him a little bit more, especially with Jake Browning at quarterback this week. Could be a little bit involved in dump-off passes and everything else like that. Then we get James Cook going against Philadelphia. It's not the greatest running back matchup in terms of actually running the ball, but if he gets involved in the receiving game, could make him a very viable option this week. Below him, we got Isaiah Pacheco at $6,200 as well. No Jerick McKinnon this week, so should mean more volume for him, maybe a little bit more used in that passing game, unless they go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that regard. Then we have Rachaad White, $6,100. He's a guy that I do like quite a bit this week. However, it did come out earlier today that he's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury and is technically questionable now for tomorrow. So we'll see what his status ultimately ends up being, but do like him quite a bit if he ends up playing. It's a really good matchup versus that Colts defense as well. Then we have Devin Singletary. He's been killing it as of late to $6,000. Damian Pierce is listed as questionable, practicing full. Probably be back this week, though. But I think Singletary's earned, that starter role at the very least at this point in time. Ramondre Stevenson at $5,800 looks like a pretty decent value here. He's been pretty solid overall. The Giants defense kind of hit or miss there too as well. So do like the upside that he could present. Then we got kind of our cheap guys down here in Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, the two Carolina running backs. There's opportunities for them at $4,800 and $4,400 respectively, but looking more like a split backfield at this point in time. I did have Tajay Spears down here at $4,400 since Derrick Henry's been kind of banged up as of late, and it's going against a pretty soft Carolina defense as well. Moving over to the wide receiver position, we got the two top guys in probably one of the most popular games this week overall. A.J. Brown, $9,000, Stephon Diggs at $8,800. Do like both quite a bit. Obviously, Philadelphia has been giving up receiving yards, passing yards, and all that good stuff, so Diggs is going to look really good. A.J. Brown, a little bit banged up last week, $9,000, a pretty big price tag, but, they're without Jane Jackson, so it's going to be Rasul Douglas, it's going to be Christian Benford on the outside most likely for the Bills once again this week. Cooper Kupp, he's a little bit banged up, so his ownership might be a little bit suppressed to $8,000. So I do like him if he ultimately ends up playing. Puka Nacua is a little bit banged up as well, but $7,600 versus that soft Arizona defense could be worth it once again this week. Mike Evans, I do like quite a bit. Should be a pretty good matchup for him against the Colts. I don't think they have a corner that matches up really well with him, so I think it could be a very big week for Mike Evans overall, and he's played really well so far this season. Devonta Smith, if you want some more action in that Philadelphia Eagles and Buffalo Bills game, definitely could be a big week for him, especially if A.J. Brown's limited in any capacity. Then we move down to Tank Dell, $6,900. Been one of the best rookie wide receivers that we've seen in a little while now, so do like him once again against Jacksonville. Looks like a favorable match, especially with no Tyson Campbell out there. Michael Pittman Jr. against Tampa is going to look like a really good matchup. There's no Jamel Dean unless they move like Carlton Davis over, who's questionable himself, to that side of the field with Michael Pittman. Could be a pretty favorable matchup for him overall. Then we have Nico Collins. Once again, no Tyson Campbell. Just another guy that you can stack with C.J. Stroud, whether it's Tank Dell, whether it's Nico Collins, whether it's Dalton Schultz. Probably not going to go all the way down to Robert Woods, though. Then we have DeAndre Hopkins. It's a decent matchup versus Carolina if they ultimately need to throw the ball. But if they can get that running game going, might not be the greatest week for him, but I think there's upside to be had there still at that. Calvin Ridley finally had another big week. Last week, he's $6,000. If you want to take a shot on upside versus the Texans, you can do that. Could be a high-scoring back-and-forth game. However, there's no Zay Jones this week, and it seems like Calvin Ridley always does a little bit better when Zay Jones is in the lineup for one reason or another. Courtland Sutton, he's not my favorite play this week, but $5,400 still a viable play overall. And then after him, we have Deontay Johnson, $4,900. Really do like what his upside could be this week with a new play caller, Mike Sullivan. When he was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2012, 2013, which also happened to be Josh Freeman's best season in the NFL, they really tried to push the ball down the field. They were averaging 13.3 yards per completion. So some of these Pittsburgh guys might look a little bit better in the coming weeks, whether it's Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. If you really want to take a shot on like Pat Freiermuth or Calvin Austin. Not going to Allen Robinson because he's not kind of that deep threat that you would like to see in this offense. The changes that I do expect do ultimately end up happening. And then we have Josh Downs, $4,800. Another attractive matchup versus Tampa Bay once again this week. Demario Douglas we have against the Giants, $4,400. Just kind of a solid piece there. We'll see who ultimately ends up starting at quarterback for the Patriots. Maybe we have that news by the time this video is up. Once again, we got the cheap wide receivers in Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch for the Cardinals, especially if there is no Hollywood Brown this week. Khalil Shakir at $3,600, I do like quite a bit. Pretty favorable matchup and a cheap guy to get to in that Buffalo and Philadelphia game that does have decent upside. A.T. Perry out there at $3,200 if you want to go that direction with no Michael Thomas. Obviously, they did sign Marquez Callaway back. If he ultimately ends up being active, probably not going to play A.T. Perry at all this week then. Trent Irvin's just down here at $3,200, a little bit banged up himself, but T. Higgins is out once again. He's got some chemistry with Jake Browning from playing with the backups together, so would not be surprised if he has a decent week. And then Trey Palmer, $3,100, just kind of a dart throw. If he gets a long touchdown, he could ultimately end up paying off. We got Juju Smith-Schuster here down at the flat minimum of $3,000. Maybe if it's Bailey Zappi at quarterback, maybe Juju gets a little bit more involved. He's at least playing more snaps, which is kind of been something we haven't seen too much out of him this year. And then last but not least, we have Justin Watson, who's played really well for the Chiefs as of late, and he's the flat minimum of $3,000. So he looks like a pretty good guy to stack with Patrick Mahomes. You could even stack Justin Watson and Travis Kelce with Patrick Mahomes and still save a little bit of money there at that just because you have the flat 3K minimum guy. Then at tight end, we got Travis Kelce. We don't need to say too much here at $8,200. A little bit more of a difficult matchup versus the Raiders, but, Trayvon Morgan's banged up at this point in time. Marcus Epps is hurt a little bit at safety, too. If you think they're covering him with a safety, that is. If you think they're covering him with a linebacker, Spillane's been pretty good there, but he's a little bit banged up himself as well. Dalton Schultz, obviously, you can stack with C.J. Stroud. Looks like a decent play on his own versus the Jacksonville Jaguars linebacker core, which is not the greatest in coverage. And then we have Dalton Schultz. Looks like a favorable matchup against the Eagles. Another way to get to that game at a pretty reasonable price tag. We got Trey McBride, who could look a lot better, especially if Hollywood Brown misses this week. David Njoku has actually played better with Dorian Thompson-Robinson for whatever reason, so $4,100, don't mind him there. Cade Otton, just kind of a dart throw against the Colts. If you stack Baker Mayfield, Cade Otton, you want to put him in there, you can do that. Probably just stacking Baker and Mike Evans myself personally, though. And then Pat Freiermuth is just cheap this week at $2,900. Could be more involved in the offense, should see more snaps this week. And then if they use him a little bit more in the passing game with Mike Sullivan as the play caller this week, could be a pretty interesting play. And then we got Daniel Bellinger and Michael Mayer just kind of dart throws down here. Guys that could have some upside that are going to play a lot of snaps. For the defenses, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, $3,700. Their defense has been pretty solid so far this year, and they're going against a pretty unproven quarterback in Jake Browning, at least at the NFL level, he's unproven. Obviously, at the high school level, he owns the all-time passing yards record for high school. I don't think anybody's beat it since then. And then college, he was pretty good at Washington, but at the NFL level, really hasn't done too much outside of the preseason. So it remains to be seen how good he can actually be. I like the Saints as well, going against the Falcons, whoever ends up starting a quarterback, whether it's Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, and do like that Saints defense versus them this week, although they are without Marshawn Lattimore, so that is something to watch out. If they can stop the run, which they typically do, could be a pretty good game for them overall. Then we have the Patriots playing Giants. It's Tommy DeVito at quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks for Bill Belichick typically don't end up too well, so definitely in play there. Broncos going against Dorian Thompson-Robinson and company, $3,200. Could be a decent game there. And then we got the Chiefs, $3,100 versus rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell. I like what the Chiefs are doing on defense as of late. You know, they're going to put some pressure on Aiden O'Connell, and if Colton Miller doesn't play this game, it's not going to be pretty for the Raiders. And I don't mind the Falcons against the Saints, too. There's opportunities to be had there. They're just kind of a cheap defense at $2,900. And then the Texans, $2,600. Obviously, I am a Texans fan. They're my favorite team, but they typically play pretty well against the Jaguars. I think they won like 10 out of the last 11 versus the Jaguars. It's something like that. The Jaguars won one of the games last year, but before that, it was like 4 straight seasons they haven't beaten them. So definitely like the Texans there. Trevor Lawrence, one of the few teams that he's struggled against has been the Texans, outside of like that one game that they won. So definitely do like them overall this week. But that's kind of the quick little rundown for DraftKings. If you guys have any specific questions related to DraftKings, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. Just note that it is for DraftKings, so I know, since there is a little bit of variables between the two different sites. But with that being said, we'll give it over to FanDuel side. So top 3 quarterbacks still going to be the same. Whether it's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, all have a ton of upside. Typically, when there's 3 guys close together like this, I just play the cheapest one. You can play the middle guy if you want to as well. You can play the top guy. It doesn't really matter. We got Kyler Murray once again, $8,000, but kind of missing some of them wide receivers this week most likely. And then we got CJ Stroud. He's $7,700 on both sides, so it looks like a pretty good value on FanDuel overall. And then we get down to Matthew Stafford. I like him at $6,900 versus the Cardinals. It's a pretty favorable matchup. He gets Kyron Williams back this week, so maybe that helps move the offense just a little bit more. And then we got Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, favorable matchups as well at $6,800 and $6,700 respectively. For the running back position, we got Alvin Kamara at the top once again, $8,700. You know, it's a matchup against the Falcons. I'm not like over the top for this matchup, but if he gets the receptions, he's going to pay off at this price tag probably once again, especially if he scores a touchdown. That's kind of been the thing for him lately. He hasn't been scoring a lot of touchdowns, but at the same time, Taysom Hill's been vulturing a lot of them as well. Then we get to Kyron Williams, $8,200. Do like him. Coming off IR, going against the Arizona Cardinals. Remains to be seen how popular he'll be with this inflated price tag on the FanDuel side as compared to DraftKings, where he's only $6,600. Obviously, 2 different salaries, 2 different sites, and everything else like that, though. And then we got Saquon Barkley, $8,000, coming off a really strong performance. We'll see how he does against the Patriots, but do like the upside that he does present this week overall. Then there's Devin Singletary at $7,300. Should be the starter still, even though Damian Pierce is questionable to return, but did practice in full all week. Maybe $7,300, a little bit more than you like to pay for Singletary. I don't mind the matchup versus Jacksonville. It's nothing out of this world to go home about, but he's played really well as of late. I really like DeAndre Swift for $100 less against Buffalo. Looks like a really favorable matchup there. Then we get down to Rachaad White once again, $7,000. Love the matchup against the Colts. Did pop up earlier today that he is now questionable due to a knee injury, so we'll see if he plays or not. If he doesn't play, it's kind of unfortunate, but if he does play, I still like him once again. Then we have Ramondre Stevenson behind him, $6,800. Do like the matchup this week against the Giants. He's been pretty solid, steady guy overall. If he gets a touchdown, he's going to look even better. Isaiah Pacheco at $6,600. Going to look really good, especially with no Jerick McKinnon. Maybe he gets a little bit of that passing game work. Maybe it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, though. And then we got Javonte Williams. I don't mind him against the Browns at $6,400 on the FanDuel side. Guy that's going to get some volume, get some pass catching work. You know, if he ultimately ends up scoring a touchdown, he's going to pay off pretty well. And then we got Miles Sanders here at $5,600, just a pay down option. Him and Chuba Hubbard were kind of splitting the work last time out. Hubbard's a lot more expensive, at least on the FanDuel side, comparatively to Miles Sanders. So if you want to take a shot on Sanders, you can do that. And then Tajay Spears at $5,100. Derrick Henry's been a little bit banged up this week. Pretty good matchup against Carolina. And if for whatever reason they actually get down in this game, could look pretty good at $5,100 as well. Then we move over to the wide receivers. So at the top, we got A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs. Once again, they're actually cheaper than they are on DraftKings. Brown's $200 cheaper, and I believe Diggs is $100 cheaper. So do like them both once again. Obviously, you want to get a part of this matchup overall. Cooper Kupp, $8,000. I believe he's the same price on both sites. So do like him. He's a little bit banged up, but I do like the matchup against the Arizona Cardinals this week. Mike Evans is a guy that I love a bunch this week just because I don't think the Colts have anybody that can even stop him, first of all. Second of all, he's just played really well this year and has really good chemistry with Baker Mayfield. So I do like him once again this week. And then we move to Tank Dell, $7,800, just played really well as a rookie wide receiver. Decent matchup against Jacksonville, especially with no Tyson Campbell out there. Michael Pittman Jr., $7,600, incredible matchup versus Tampa Bay this week, especially if Carlton Davis misses as well. We already know that Jamel Dean's out, but Carlton Davis is questionable as well. Like into Devonta Smith at $7,400, especially if you're playing multiple lineups. If you're playing multiple lineups, you want to mix and match a lot of these Philadelphia and Buffalo pieces, getting different exposure to that game because somebody in that game is ultimately going to pay off. DeAndre Hopkins, $7,200. If they need him this week, it looks like a pretty favorable matchup. No C.J. Henderson. J.C. Horn still not back off IR. I think it was DiCaprio Bottle, who was kind of like one of the reserve corners that was playing now, went on IR. So there's a lot of guys missing from their secondary. Once again, he still might get Dante Jackson following him around this week, but Jackson has not played up to his level that we would expect from him this season. Calvin Ridley, $7,100, coming off a pretty strong week. There is no Zay Jones this week, though, so we'll see if he goes off or not. Obviously, it's a decent matchup against the Texans overall. I like Nico Collins probably a little bit more on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings, $6,900. Do like the matchup, stacking him with C.J. Stroud once again this week. Deontay Johnson, $6,400, like I said, on DraftKings. New play caller Mike Sullivan is going to want to push the ball down the field. That's what he did in Tampa. So expect some of these Pittsburgh guys to start getting some more yardage, first of all. Maybe Kenny Pickett looks a little bit better as well. But do really like Deontay Johnson this week overall against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are without Cam Taylor-Britt in their secondary. And then we got Josh Downs, $5,900, just a solid play once again. Good matchup against Tampa. Khalil Shakir is one of my favorite pay down options this week, getting some cheap exposure to that Buffalo and Philadelphia game. It's a good matchup in the slot, probably versus Bradley Roby there this week. I have Rashid Rice on FanDuel. I didn't have him on DraftKings. I think his price tag on DraftKings is not as nice. He's only $200 more on FanDuel, but when you look at the price salaries comparatively, it makes a little bit more sense to play him on FanDuel, $5,700 if you want to go that direction. I don't love the matchup versus Nate Hobbs in the slot this week, though. And then we have Rondale Moore at $5,200. If you want to stack him with Kyler Murray, he's a pretty cheap guy to do, especially if Hollywood Brown and Zach Pascal both end up missing once again this week. Justin Watson, $5,100, one of the cheaper wide receivers that you're going to find on the slate. And he's been playing really well for this Chiefs team overall. Cheap way to stack alongside Mahomes. If you want to throw Travis Kelce along with that and do 3 players in the stack, you can do that as well. And then we got Trey Palmer, $5,100. You're just hoping for that deep shot out of Baker Mayfield to him. It could happen versus the Colts, so definitely a guy that's in play. And then A.T. Perry, $4,700. Probably the cheapest wide receiver you're going to find on FanDuel that's actually playable. There is no Michael Thomas. He went on IR, so Perry could get some more reps. If Marquez Callaway ends up active for this game, though, not getting to A.T. Perry this week, though. And then at the tight end position, going to be pretty similar to the DraftKings side, but we got Travis Kelce at the top, $8,300. We don't really need to say too much there. It's a decent matchup against the Raiders, especially with Spillane and their safeties banged up at this point in time. We'll see if those guys play or not. If they don't play, Travis Kelce's going to look even better this week. And then we got Dalton Schultz. Looks like a pretty solid matchup versus Jacksonville Jaguars linebackers. Not the greatest in coverage once again. Trey McBride's going to look really good if there's no Hollywood Brown this week at $6,100. So definitely in play. And it's a decent matchup versus the Rams as well. Dalton Kincaid, good matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. Really like him this week. Another way to get to that Eagles and Bills game once again. Kadon just kind of taking a dart throw out there at $5,000. He's relatively cheap, so if he gets a touchdown, this game could ultimately end up paying off. Pat Freiermuth, Michael Mayer, and Daniel Bellinger, all kind of guys that should be playing a bunch this week and have some decent upside as well, especially if they catch a touchdown. In terms of defenses, we got the Chiefs going against the Raiders. They're $5,000. Really do like them versus Aiden O'Connell. If they can get pressure on him, if there's no Colton Miller in this game, could be a pretty ugly day for them. And for whatever it's worth, it feels like Aiden O'Connell doesn't get a lot of slack, but he's been turning the ball over at a pretty high rate. So that looks really good for this Chiefs defense. Pressure plus turnovers equals good defense in DFS, and especially if you can get a defensive touchdown off of it. Then we have the Steelers going against Jake Browning. He's really improving at this point in time, $4,700. If they can get some pressure on him, could be a favorable matchup. Patriots going against rookie quarterback Tommy DeVito. Typically, Bill Belichick has done really well versus rookie quarterbacks, so I would assume that this is a pretty similar case here. Especially if they can get some pressure on him, he's going to make some turnovers. Then we got the Broncos going against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, $4,100. Decent upside play to be had there. We got the Falcons at $3,800 versus the Saints. Just kind of a paydown defense. And then last but not least, we have my favorite team, the Houston Texans, once again, $3,300. One of the cheapest defenses that you can play on FanDuel this week overall, and they've done really well versus the Jaguars over time. I believe Trevor Lawrence has really only had like one good game against them too, so definitely does make some sense to get some exposure to the Texans this week overall. But with that being said, that's kind of what I got for the player pool for the FanDuel side as well. And then with that being said, if you got any specific questions related to the FanDuel side, drop them down in the comments. Just note that they are for FanDuel, so it makes it easier on myself, makes it easier on you. Don't have to do as much back and forth, and it helps so that I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have for NFL DFS for week number 12. If you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, would ask that you do subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content that I am putting out. And then same thing goes if you're a returning viewer as well that has yet to subscribe. If you enjoy the content that I'm putting out, whether it's NBA DFS, NFL DFS, be sure to do that as well. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Like I said, pretty much NBA DFS and NFL DFS at this point in time. NBA DFS core pick videos Monday through Friday. We got NFL DFS player pool video coming out once a week, typically on Saturdays. And then my NFL DFS cheat sheets are up on the Sports Affiliation website as well. So be sure to check them out if that's something you're interested in. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links down in the description below for Parlay Play, BetUS, and Prize Picks. If you sign up on any of those three sites, you're a brand new user, make your first time deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Parlay Play and Prize Picks, it's up to $100. For BetUS, it's 125% of your initial deposit. So definitely be sure to check that out. It helps you out as you start your sports betting, your prop betting journey. Helps me out a little bit on the side as well. And then with that being said, if you have any questions in regards to sports betting, prop betting, anything else like that, feel free to leave them down in the comments or reach out to me on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning into this video. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NFL DFS for week number 12.